Hey there, friends. Want to see something cool? Come over here. So, this right here, this is a painting by a Baltimore-based artist by the name of Sogh, S-O-G-H. It came to be on my wall after seeing it at an art fair in Baltimore, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, and it is probably my favorite piece that I have on my walls at home right now. This is a performance by Cyrus Spencer and Comfort as part of Season 9 of So You Think You Can Dance, and it is my favorite dance performance of all time. Not only does it tell a really fun story, but there's an entire middle section of it involving a tutting sequence that blows my mind still to this day. This is a Tyrannosaurus Rex model, I believe from Safari Limited. I got it at AwesomeCon in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, and it brings me joy every time I look at it. This was from a brief period where we thought there was a good likelihood that Tyrannosaurus Rex as an adult had feathers, because we're almost positive they had them when they were juveniles, but since then there have been studies to refute this. But nonetheless, this was such a cool find, and every time I see it over on my bookshelf, it makes me smile. Alright, so why am I talking about all these different things? Well, it's because they all have one thing in common, namely, that I think that they are beautiful. And I'd like to talk to you today a little bit about beauty, why I think it's important, and why it motivates me as an artist, and I hope that it'll motivate you too. Drex here from DrexFactor Poi, sharing with you the love of poi spinning and flow arts to benefit your body and brain. And today, I want to talk with you a little bit about beauty and how it intersects with the flow arts. But before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Fire Mecca, Flow Fests, Flow Toys, Juggling Calling, Pyroterra Light Toys, Spin Balls, and Ultra Poi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all these awesome companies and the work that they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links down in the description of this video. And special thanks to the non-business friend of the channel, Pekha Pekkonen. Thank you so very much for supporting my channel, my work, and my mission. Now bear with me here because this is going to get a little heavy at times, but basically, when I was 7 or 8 years old, I think I had my first existential crisis when I came to understand what the ultimate fate of the universe is. And that is that everything that we know will one day be gone. And I don't mean in the sense of, in another 30 years, your house is going to get torn down and another one's going to be built in its place, or even that civilizations come and go, or even that someday the sun is going to explode and eat up the earth. No, I'm talking trillions upon trillions more years in the future. Because eventually all the mass in the universe is going to be concentrated in black holes, and we're going to have an entire universe full of black hole galaxies. And then, beyond that, all those black holes are going to eventually evaporate, and we're going to be left with a completely empty universe in which there are light years between fundamental particles, and there is never any hope that any of those particles will ever interact again. The universe will be cold, empty, and lifeless for all eternity. So as you might imagine as a child, this freaked the living shit out of me. This began what would turn out to be an entire lifetime's worth of insomnia, in which I pondered gigantic questions and kept myself awake all night as a result of it. This is my favorite book of all time, The Yiddish Policeman's Union by Michael Chabon. It is basically a hard-boiled detective story that is set in an alternate version of Alaska, and it has some of the most beautiful and heartbreaking prose I have ever read in my life. In fact, if I could have the ability to erase one book that I have read in my life and be able to go back and have the experience of reading it for the first time all over again, this, without question, is the book that I would do it for. This right here is a recipe for chicken tikka masala that I came across during the pandemic. Now this recipe is a commitment. It only says that it takes about 45 minutes to cook on it, but really it's closer to like 2 or 3 hours. So I really have to clear out a block of time in order to make it happen. But my goodness, it is so worth it. This is probably my favorite thing to cook for myself, and it has been agreed by many, many friends that this is without peer the single tastiest thing that I can cook up right now. So this is sandalwood incense. perhaps a little bit basic, but what I really like about this is both how simultaneously musky it is while also very calming and pleasant. I usually burn incense kind of frequently in order to re-regulate myself and get to a point where I'm more relaxed, and sandalwood is definitely my favorite scent for this. So I, like many people staring down the barrel of the void, started asking myself big questions. If the ultimate fate of everything was just to be completely erased for all eternity, then what was the point of all the things that we created? What was the point of existence? What was the point of anything that I would do in the course of my life? I didn't have an answer then, but I think I have a better answer now. So there's a lot of reasons why this freaks me out, but one of the biggest ones is just that I kind of love the world around us. I think that there's a lot of things in it that are beautiful, and the idea of losing all those things, of there not even being a trace of them left, is something that makes me really sad. So I had a day earlier this week when I was just not okay, and I set aside a block of time for myself during the course of the day to emotionally re-regulate myself. What that consisted of was that I lit up some incense, I played some of my favorite music, and I reread my favorite issue of one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. And you know what? It just brought me this feeling of peace and joy that I was able to take with me through the rest of the day. By interacting with these beautiful things, it improved the quality of my day, and by extension, kind of the quality of that little piece of my life. This is my favorite album of all time. Who's Next by The Who. The first track on it, Baba O'Reilly, is my favorite song of all time. I can remember falling in love with this record when I was very little, maybe 5 or 6 years old. And I remember just pushing all of the buttons on my parents' stereo, trying to figure out the specific combination that I needed in order to make this record come out of the speakers. And it features what I think is one of the all-time greatest choruses in all of rock and roll history. This is Hanabi, my favorite card game. I own 3 copies of it, and I bring around a copy with me wherever I go so I can introduce strangers to it. The central idea behind this game is that everybody receives a hand of cards, and everybody can see the hands of everybody else at the table except their own. You want to try and distribute hints to everybody so that you lay down the cards in a particular order. It's an easy game to describe, but it's incredibly challenging to actually play. I have gotten a perfect score on this game only 5 times in the past 10 years. This right here is a shoulder bag that I have owned for the better part of 15 years. I acquired it at a music festival called Floyd Fest that happens out in Virginia, and I deeply regret that I do not remember the name of the artist that I purchased it from, because this is one of my absolute most favorite possessions. And as you can see, it's getting a little threadbare. And I have a feeling that probably within the coming year, there will be a catastrophic failure with some part of this bag, and I will be so sad to have to let it go. So if any of you out there are watching and you've been to Floyd Fest and you've purchased one of these bags, let me know who this person was, because I would really love to get another one. I really don't think that we realize very often just how lucky we are. It's not just that we have this universe where there's this point in between it being a hot, dense soup of matter to being an endless void of nothing, where it was possible for life like us to evolve. To say nothing of the fact that we happened to come about on a planet that was in the habitable zone of a particular star, and that all of the necessary quirks of evolution that had to happen for us to be here did happen. Heck, the vast majority of human beings that have ever existed are already dead. Most of them died in childhood. We exist in a very narrow range of possibilities. We're extraordinarily lucky to be here. I I know that it's easy to take that for granted when there's, what, 7 or 8 billion of us on this planet and counting. How can all of us be lucky when there's so many of us here? And, well, the fact that there are so many of us here is a testament to just how much work has happened over the course of the entirety of humanity's history to try and figure out how to give as many of us as possible that opportunity to experience creation. So this right here is my base. It is a Sterling Stingray, which means that it's the budget brand version of a Music Man Stingray. It's got active electronics, and overall the feel is pretty similar to what you'd find with a P-Bass. Up to that point, I'd been using mainly hand-me-downs, and I wanted something that actually felt like me. So I went to the local music store, and I got a couple friends to help me out with an experiment. Namely, they took each and every bass in that music store. I sat down in a chair, I closed my eyes, and one by one, they put each bass in my lap and had me play it. I had nothing to go by except for how the basses felt and how they sounded. And after trying each and every bass in the store, this was the clear winner. It's also gorgeous, I have to say. I look at this hanging on my wall every once in a while, and I'm just struck by the beauty of this. After all that work, I can honestly say that my bass sounds like me and me alone. This right here is a figurine that a good friend of mine gave me, not that terribly long ago, actually. It is a depiction of a Sami person wearing gakti. The reason that she gave this to me is that my family's ancestors were Sami before they came over from Finland. They assimilated a few generations ago, so unfortunately, I don't know what our family gakti would have looked like. I don't speak the language, and near as I can tell, aside from one stew recipe that's been in the family for a while, there's nothing else that remains of the original Sami culture that we came from, which is really sad. And it's been a priority for me the past few years to learn more about that culture, to start learning the language, and to hopefully one day feel as though I can reclaim part of what was lost to us. And even though I've already done some research on this, and I know that the colors and the patterns aren't quite right. It's an admirable attempt. But nonetheless, seeing this little figure up on my bookshelf is a reminder to me, and kind of a hope, that one day I will have more of my Sami heritage than just a figurine sitting on my shelf. These are fabric poi from sock poi. As you might imagine, I have used a lot, and I do mean a lot, of sets of poi over the course of my career. And there's a reason that you always see these popping up. These are what I spend most often. These are what I feel most comfortable with right now. I feel like they are the perfect complement for where I am in my flow journey right now. They show up beautifully on camera. The weight and handling of them is perfect for my style of dance. And honestly, they're really portable, and they just feel right to me. I absolutely adore these. So whenever I see all these beautiful things around me, from paintings to music, graphic novels, dance, you name it, there's a little part of me that's a little sad, because I know that one day it's all going to disappear, and the last person that even remembered it existed will be gone from the universe. Any trace that it ever existed will be gone as well. But at the same time, I feel an enormous amount of gratitude that I got to experience those things. There's so many objects, events, people, performances, etc. that have crossed my path over the time that I've been here that I feel an enormous amount of gratitude for being able to experience. All these little things have improved my time here. And in all honesty, I think that this is part of what makes these things beautiful. The fact that they are temporary, the fact that they're not going to last, the fact that we are taking this narrow window of time that we have access to, and we're using that time to reorder creation into things that are beautiful to us and that improve our experiences of being here. In a lot of ways, I think that creating those beautiful things in and of itself is an act of defiance against the void. I know that it surely is for me. Sure, I know that eventually the void is going to win and that all of it is going to be gone. But in the meantime, I can get so much joy from being able to put things into creation and appreciating the things that still exist as a part of it. We all make choices about the things that we surround ourselves with. We think about what enriches our environment, what enriches our experience of being here, and we collect those things around us that improve those experiences. And for some of us, that is artists and creatives, well, it becomes our job to put new beautiful things into the world. This is volume 7 of The Sandman, probably my favorite comic series of all time. And ironically enough, this was actually the first collection from the series that I ever read. This story features by far what I think is my favorite thing I have ever read from Neil Gaiman, wherein there's a man who is over 10,000 years old, and he dies unexpectedly when a building falls over on him. When death comes to pick him up and move him on to what comes next, he insists, "I did pretty good here, didn't I? I got in 10,000 years." To which death replies, "You got what anybody got. You got a lifetime. No more, no less." So these are a set of jeans that I found at Ross while I was shopping for something completely different. And I think they're the only pair of pants that I have ever owned that when I wear them, I feel attractive. This is a rehearsal video from New York-based dancer and choreographer Melissa B. Craft. Melissa B. Craft has actually uploaded a lot of videos that I really like over the years, but what makes this one stick out to me is just the incredible musicality of it. When I think of musicality, and especially with my own poi dance, this right here is the example that I'm pulling from. In my mind, this is one of the primary motivators for doing all the poi dance videos that I've been uploading in the past 2 years. It's all about creating things that I think are beautiful, that when I look at them, I have an appreciation and say, wow, I can't believe that I did that. One of the things I love most about those poi dance videos is going back and watching them on an idle Saturday afternoon, getting to experience them again, watching them and being like, wow, I'm really glad that this exists in the world. And I have to say, I feel really lucky to live in a time where we have the technology to be able to go back and rewatch dance any old time we want. Most of human history has not been like that, and my goodness, is it a part of this period in history that I really appreciate. Last year, I choreographed my first full poi piece to an entire song in years. And going back and watching it even to this day, it makes me so proud to have done that. There's a poi dance video that I shot just a month ago that is choreographed so tightly to the music that I can tell exactly what's going on in the music, even without the audio. It's the first time I've ever seen that happen in my own poi dance, and I just continue to be overwhelmed with pride over that. So here is my challenge to you. Make beautiful things. Make things that help you appreciate your time here, and make things that help other people appreciate their time here too. It's beautiful because it is so fleeting, and that's why it's worth doing. And as for me, right now, I'm in the midst of creating a new beautiful thing. I've found a new song that I'm choreographing to, and so far, I'm pretty happy with how the results are turning out. So, I am going to set up the camera right quick to record all that, and as I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and do my usual shout out to my Patreon supporters for supporting this video and all the videos on my channel. Going to have a little pop-up that's appearing on screen right now as I'm talking about this. I'm going to show you what I'm working on, and I hope you appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, I hope you'll consider signing up to support me making additional videos like this and putting more beautiful things into the world. You can do that by heading on over to Patreon and signing up at patreon.com/DrexFactor Poi. In the meantime, here's what I got cooking. I hope you like it.
Something's got a hold on me lately. No, I don't know myself anymore. Feels like the walls are all closing in, and the devil's knocking at my door. Whoa, out of my mind. How many times did I tell you I'm no good at being alone? Yeah, it's taking a toll on me. Trying my best to keep from tearing the skin off my bones. Don't